Welcome back, listeners. I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. In today's episode, having feelings versus being in your feelings. Today, I want to talk about the difference between the two because there's a huge difference. And I'm going to go over 6 steps as to what to do to get out of your own head. You know, we internalize so many feelings, and we need to know sometimes how to just get out of those feelings. But number one, the very first thing you have to understand when being in a relationship, when you're working, when you're in school, not everybody's going to like you. And as far as relationships, not everyone is going to be compatible. You're not going to be compatible with everyone that you're with. And I think that sometimes is the hardest thing to accept. When we want something so badly, it's hard to accept it, because if you really want to work at a new company and that company doesn't hire you, it may really bother you. But it's just God's way of saying, hey, you're not compatible. That's not what I have for you. That's not a part of your destiny. But it's a lot easier said than done. But know that it's okay if not everybody likes you, or if not every job that you want is willing to hire you. It's okay. It's a normal feeling to have that feeling of disappointment, right? But when we get in our feelings, it's a totally different story. So that brings me to number 2, which is understanding the problem. That's the first step to problem solving, is you have to understand it. And also you have to locate it. You have to locate it in order to understand it. And the way to locate the problem is to first ask yourself, am I leading with my mind or am I leading with my heart? If you're leading with your mind, you're going to be an overthinker. I myself, I struggle with this sometimes. I used to struggle with it terribly in the past, but I internalize a lot. I live in my head a lot. So I'm constantly either overthinking, I'm asking a ton of questions. If it doesn't make sense to me, I'm analyzing or I'm dissecting, right? That's what a lot of people tend to do. We want to analyze and dissect something to death instead of just being like, okay, let it flow how it's supposed to flow. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, because you have to get yourself out of your own head to do that. And when you're leading with your heart, you're leading emotionally. That's when some people may tend to victimize themselves. They may always feel like, oh, how does this affect me? This is going to affect me this way. This person made me feel this way. This company isn't promoting me. Now I feel like it's me. Oh, woe is me. That's how you know, okay, this is the area that I need help with. I have now located the problem. How do I fix it? Then that brings you to step 3. You see, how is it affecting others? How are others being affected by your behavior that you're displaying or by your actions? 9 times out of 10, whether it's you're in a relationship, you may be constantly complaining about boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, whoever, saying they never answer my calls. Why don't they never answer my calls. They don't ever want to talk to me. They can even be family members. You may have a mother, father, sister, brother, whoever, that complains constantly. And when they complain constantly, and they're always, pulling the victim card, they're always victimizing themselves or whatever the case may be, you're not going to want to talk to that person. So if you're dealing with avoidance behavior from others, that's a huge red flag. That's like, ding, 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 maybe I'm the problem. And sometimes it's the hardest thing to do, is to look in the mirror and say, what are my flaws? Maybe it's me. And sometimes you just have to ask them. If you don't really know and you can't figure it out, you don't have that insight, then ask. And you have to be willing to accept constructive criticism. A lot of people will ask, well, what's wrong? What did I do wrong? And then when they get an answer, then they get upset. But again, if you're always in your feelings, you're gonna get upset with constructive criticism. You have to be able to locate the problem, understand it, and then you can move to accepting it and trying to fix it. Because if you don't understand it, you'll never reach a solution. You have to understand before you can actually get to a solution. But then that brings me to number 4, which is accountability. And that accountability can be the hardest thing to achieve, to be able to say, I know it's me. I know I have this problem. I know I'm dealing with abandonment issues. I know I'm dealing with trust issues. That's typically, those two are the number one issues that people have the most, is trying to cope with both of those, and not even realizing that those are triggers. Being, having an abandonment trigger, or having a trust trigger. Maybe you've been hurt in the past. Maybe you've had a lot of people pass away. Maybe you've had a lot of people leave you, or whatever the case is. Sometimes that affects you and you don't even realize that it's affecting you until you start getting in a relationship. Or for the people who are leading with their minds, you're leading mentally, you're just like, okay, I'm constantly overthinking. You tend to have a lot of insight. So you can foresee things. You'll be 9 steps ahead of people. And sometimes that's where the compatibility issues come into play, because if you're a lot further than your partner, there's going to be some discrepancy. There's going to be a lot of conflict there, because the other person may or may not feel belittled because you're so much further. You're more advanced than they are. And there's going to be an issue there, which again, that comes to compatibility. Maybe intellectually you're not compatible in that sense. And that's okay. But you can't try to make it work, because it's probably not going to, because you're going to always feel like, man, I always have to go back, always have to rewind, go back and make sure they're okay and do that. You're going to always feel like they're weighing you down versus benefiting you, versus they're uplifting me. We're this power couple together. You're going to always feel off balance. But then that brings me to number 5, is the isolation. You have to take time out and really think it through. You have to take time to reflect on, okay, what did I just find out about myself? The people that you asked, what's wrong, or, what do I need to work on? Whether it's a job, a teacher, a significant other, whoever it is, and they say, okay, well, this, and this, or this is how you make me feel, or these are the areas that I feel you could improve. It's like, you have to be able to accept that, but you also have to be able to reflect, take time out. Because when we are dealing with the darkness versus the light, it's very hard, because you're like, okay, which one is where am I at? Am I in alignment? Am I not in alignment? And this picture that I have on this word, whether you're on my social media, my YouTube channel, you'll see it, but there's like a golden light on her. It's more like it's like a beauty picture, but to me, the way I view it is, I see it as the golden light versus the darkness. But the golden light part of her, it's over her, like her forehead area, which is when we're going through a battle, it's the battle of the mind always. And the only way to really get through these battles is to hand it over to God. God is going to be the one that can take it all, because he already has won. He already has the victory, but we gain the victory through him. But when it's our heart that's in the darkness, that's how you'll know. You're going to be in your feelings. You're going to be in your feelings all the time. You're going to always feel hurt. You're going to be emotional. You're going to cry all the time. You may be depressed. There's going to be so many different things wrong. But God, when you invite God in and you give the battle over to him, you really finally release it and you say, I cannot get through this by myself. I cannot do this by myself. That's when God comes in and he takes over. That's that light coming in and then shining on your mind, and it'll eventually go through your whole